Welcome to the EthnoMed podcast, a community voice in the clinic. My name is Dr. Duncan Reed, a physician in the International Medicine Clinic at Harborview Medical Center and medical director of EthnoMed, a web resource for providers and patients with information for cross-cultural care. Today, we are continuing our interview series called Provider Pulse, where we elevate diverse voices from across healthcare fields to learn the paths people took to their current roles in healthcare. Whether you are an undergraduate student considering a career in healthcare, a practicing health professional, or a member of the community, these conversations are for you.
I feel like I was always navigating East versus West, like that culture identity of you come from a more Eastern background, like my parents spoke Chinese a lot in the household. It was hard to navigate the American school system. Something I'm really passionate about is having a reputation of first-generation college graduates, people from low-income backgrounds.
On today's episode, we are featuring a discussion with Dr. Jennifer Zhu, an internal medicine resident at the University of Washington. She discusses navigating multiple identities, that of a second-generation American whose parents immigrated from China, and that of a first-generation college student.
My name is Jennifer Zhu. I am a first-year resident in internal medicine. I was originally born in Roseburg, Oregon. I grew up in Medford, Oregon. I've been all over the West Coast and even East Coast. I went to undergrad at Occidental College in LA, which is a liberal arts school. After college, I took a few gap years working in research at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, where my family is now. And then I did medical school at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and now back to the West Coast.
So how was Medford? I think anyone that's from California has driven through Medford to come up here. How did your parents end up in Medford?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, Medford's right off I-5. It was very interesting living there as someone who isn't Caucasian. So we originally were in Roseburg, Oregon, which is, if people drive up from California to Washington, is right off I-5, which is, it's pretty small, a lot of farmland. And my parents immigrated with two of four of my older brothers from a small village called Taishan in China. Sometimes immigrant families, there's a lot of trauma or things that they don't want to talk about. My understanding was we had family members who owned a restaurant, so my parents came to America through that type of sponsorship. So if my two older brothers, and they worked at that restaurant. My family and I lived in a really tiny, like one-bedroom apartment in Roseburg. And then we ended up going to Medford to try to start our own restaurant. And again, lived in a tiny one, like four of my brothers lived in like one room. And then I slept with my parents in their bedroom. So more humble beginnings just with the immigrant experience. My parents weren't as educated either, and more just manual labor. So growing up in Medford, it's not the most diverse place. There isn't places in California like a community. I do remember there being judgment from other neighbors or just with the broken English, but I feel like my parents really did the best they could in that type of situation. I feel like I was always navigating East versus West, like that culture identity of you come from a more Eastern background, like my parents spoke Chinese a lot in the household. It was hard to navigate the American school system. And then at the public schools I went to or hanging out with friends or the interests I had, it leaning more towards Western culture. And I feel like I've always been trying to navigate the two and feel like maybe I was forced to push more to Western culture just with education and everything. But I think growing up, I definitely appreciate my Eastern culture more, but I definitely have challenges with it. I definitely got bullied when I was younger, I would say in first or second grade. Was put into English as a second language or in kindergarten, first grade, even though I tested out of it. So definitely used to feeling like an outsider. Then later on, I feel like I found my friend group, people supported me, teachers that really advocated for me, getting me in certain advanced classes. And a lot of my friends' parents were really helpful too in my life, trying to like just help me out if my parents had to work or driving me home and everything. A lot of my friends were Caucasian. There's probably only a handful of any other races.
Then you went to Occidental. What were you thinking at that time in terms of what you were interested in studying?
I felt like I was always in high school pretty good at math and science. So I was thinking maybe like engineering. My parents didn't force me so much to be a physician like I feel like some parents do. And I just did engineering. I didn't really like physics. And then I decided to major in biochemistry. And I did really like science. And then post-college tried to do more research to see if I wanted to do a PhD or to do more bench research. But I was really missing that human connection that I think I saw in shadowing, that I saw when I assisted my parents at their doctor's appointments, and how there was cultural barriers involved and language barriers involved too. And that's just something I felt like with my skill set to pursue later on. But it took a bit. Like I did take a few gap years.
You mentioned having experiences with your parents, going to health providers. Was that a big thing that motivated you?
It really was. I felt like from a young age, I feel like I, just with my different family, parent health comorbidities, that I had shoulder a lot of that burden of caretaking and translating, helping advocate, and even now still communicating things with them, helping them understand healthcare as much as I can as a daughter. That was something that has always really drove me to be part of healthcare, because I feel like I came at a different lens than maybe people who had physicians as parents. We had some shadow experiences in undergrad and post-college too. I was partly did neurology research coordinating for clinical trials, was able to shadow that as well. Sometimes people find experiences via parents, but I felt like for me, I got a lot of support through different diversity initiatives. I am a first-generation college grad, and I did come from a low-income background, and I have been supported a lot by scholarships, federal and private funded. And there were a lot of different diversity initiatives that allowed us to get experience with shadowing doctors that we wouldn't have. I'm really grateful for those experiences.
So when you graduated Occidental, were you like, I'm going to be a doctor?
No, not at all. No, I was really open in exploring different avenues, because everyone kept telling me like, oh, being a doctor, it's tough. It's really grueling. You have to make sure it's really right for you. There's a lot of burnout. And that's why I thought about research. I feel like I was just research versus medicine.
So then how did you go about exploring that? There's a lot of undergrads in that same boat. They finished undergrad. They maybe did all their prereqs. People are telling them how tough medicine is. So then how did you go about figuring out what you really wanted to do?
My job was I'm doing partly neuroimaging, partly wet lab, partly on computer-based simulations. And then another part of my job came about because I said to like the PI I was interested in medicine. I was just doing more clinical trials with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and that was partly onboarding patients for those trials. And then I did a component of shadowing the physician I was working with, the neurologist. I couldn't really see myself doing a PhD, doing a postdoc, and having that stress of becoming your own principal investigator versus being maybe stuck as a research scientist or a postdoc forever if you don't get certain grants on time. I just felt for me, I liked the component of compassion, helping those who are suffering, being able to still use science, as well as having a more secure route. Obviously, medicine's really tough, but it seemed like the path forward to financial stability, which is something that I've had to think about a lot, just being more independent in my life.
So those years that you had in the gap year, how did you organize those to end up applying to medical school?
I knew right in undergrad I wasn't ready to take, I know a lot of people that go straight through, really commend them being able to take the MCAT immediately, having all their prereqs immediately and all their letter recs. And I just know for me, I'm a little slower with those things. Eventually I try to get my feet wet, making sure I want to do medicine. And then I just had a plan. I was like, I'm going to take the MCAT this time. I'm going to make sure I have these letters, still keep in contact with the people I had from college and the new PIs that I met in research, and kind of giving myself like a timeline. Because in the end with work, especially research work, you can always just kind of get stuck year by year. But I made sure to have a specific deadline in my head and just try it when I felt ready.
How many years of gap year was that?
I took 4.
Which I think is really nice for undergraduates to hear too, because I think that's much more common now. Any medical experiences when you were growing up that had an impact on how you think about medicine?
My dad was pretty sick growing up, and I, post-grad, had a little bit of an illness that I had overcome, partially affecting why I had to take gap years from the side of helping caretake for a father that had a traumatic thing happen to him, and then seeing him still have remnants of health issues and helping with that. And then for me, I was a patient myself and underwent some treatments, and then seeing it from the patient side, being a very independent 22-year-old to having to take a step back from everything. I think that's also why with medicine, I honor it so much. And I needed to make sure that it was the right thing for me in those 4 years, because it's a heavy burden. It's a privilege. And even more as an intern, I know I'm very green, but signing some orders sometimes or writing notes or prescribing stuff, it's a lot more responsibility.
Sounds like you have so much experience actually on the front lines. Just being in that situation of a family member helping someone, I think you can identify a lot with the patients and their families that we see in clinic.
Definitely understand the complex family dynamics that come about, and then maybe not the most health literate. And I have a lot to learn. I know I'm not perfect even with my background, but hopefully when I get my bearings, it'll feel like it all comes together, my experiences and my family's experiences and the sacrifices they made to be the physician that helped these types of patients. The biggest thing for me, no matter what I've gone through, I feel like I am privileged to be here, and it's definitely supporting people that I think aren't seen in medicine as much. I know there are a lot of Asian doctors, but just coming from my background, coming from Medford, Oregon, that's not what I was really acquainted with. Something I'm really passionate about is having a reputation of first-generation college graduates, people from low-income backgrounds. That's something I'm really passionate about, mentoring high school students from the background. At Wake Forest, I was a president, co-founder of this community called Wake First, which was for first-generation college grads from low-income backgrounds trying to support each other and have different resident panels so you could learn of different experiences, and also talking to the faculty about how we need more representation, we need more support, even though we're the minority of medical students. I hope as a resident and as an attending and through serving specific populations that I can help scaffold someone else's experience to be where I am really lucky to be, and try to remember that.
That first generation college graduate is a whole other identity that I would have never known about, but it seems central to your story and your identity.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's a lot of just advocating for yourself, but also finding mentors that support you. So I think it's great, like Dr. Reed, how you support people from different backgrounds trying to get into medicine. It's something we all really appreciate, because sometimes it's really difficult to pinpoint mentors or people who write letters or recs, or in our heads, is it just on us or is there support? And it means so much. I wouldn't be here without my mentors and people who've supported me.
It sounds like all of us that are here, we're lucky to have good mentorship from people that I think just offered it, and it wasn't something that we had to ask for.
I think to be where we are right now, I do think we worked really hard and overcame adversity, but it is a lot about luck and privilege in some ways to be here. Did you meet this one person? Did you get this support at this one point? It doesn't mean like mentorship too. It doesn't mean like, oh, it has to be that one person that's lifelong mentor. It's just a culmination of people who fervently believe in you and your mission. And that's something I hope once I get my bearings one day that I am able to advocate for others and diversify medicine.
And then that diversity takes so many different forms. It's not just ethnicity or background, but it's all these life experiences. And I've been guilty of just reading the surface of so many people and not understanding all the diverse experiences they've had and all these diverse identities they have as well.
I think it's something that I still fall under too. I think it's just in medicine or in general, when you meet so many people and you have this certain amount of education, you just don't really know where someone comes from unless you delve into their story more, which is something as a physician I really want to cultivate, that deep understanding of someone's past and their wishes and goals for the future.
And then med school is its own big thing. How was it overall?
Med school was a lot. Before this, I read my personal statement for med school and for residency just to think about the words I said. And they all ring true, but sometimes when you get back in the weeds of preclinicals and STEP and everything, you forget why you wanted to go into the profession. When you get overwhelmed, you can't think super clearly about everything. And once you find the reason why you want to do something again, it comes together. I won't lie, it wasn't the easiest transition for me personally. Just dealing with moving from West Coast to East Coast and some family health issues, and then taking a gap year during medical school just because of some family issues that resolved that I felt like I needed to be there for my family during that year. But I feel like each time something happens, I find the reason to continue doing medicine. And I think med school was hard, but in the end, it was really rewarding to be able to graduate and say I'm a doctor and match where I wanted to match ultimately.
So you're happy to be out in Seattle?
I am, yeah. I'm still getting used to it. I'm still getting used to residency in general. I feel like it's funny to interview us right now when we're so green, and I feel like all of us are a little frazzled right now and feeling like we are MDs, but like, what do we really know? I feel like for me, the adjustment period's hard, and it's not perfect, but I don't think it's supposed to be. I would say to anyone listening to this that's interested in medicine, it doesn't have to be a linear path. It doesn't have to be perfect or straightforward. I think that in the end, things work out the way they should. I think we started 3 weeks ago.
What are you looking forward to? What do you see your future holding for you?
Each block is going to be its own trial in its own way, but I hope one day I'll feel more of a competent resident, just figuring out future career prospects, if that means hospital medicine, primary care, fellowship. I think I do feel like there's great support here to try to figure out those avenues, but just really hoping that I have a work-life balance. When you have more gap years, I'm 30 right now. Early 30s is something that I want to still have a life, and I feel like that's something I hope to achieve. I also just hope to be able to understand how to doctor as a verb, that I can really just get to know my patients more, honor them more, think of their stories, think of where they've come from, and what it means for them to have trust in us as physicians, as a healthcare team, especially when a lot of the patients come from horrific experiences that I can't empathize with, but they still trust in our healthcare system. And that's just something that I hope that I engage with in the future.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for all your support throughout this.
We hope that you've gained a perspective of the challenges faced by individuals with multiple identities. Here, Dr. Jennifer Zhu was navigating life both as a second-generation American from an immigrant family, as well as a first-generation college student. We will be continuing our Provider Pulse series with additional interviews of healthcare providers. Here's the voice of Dr. Chloe Donegan, our guest for the next episode.
I think Peace Corps is an interesting experience, and how there aren't many other situations when you're willingly put in a community where you don't know anyone and you don't speak the language. And I don't want to compare it to the patients we're seeing in clinic, because those are much more challenging situations. And I, of course, was there by choice, and I could leave anytime if I needed to. But I do think that it's helped me understand what it's like to be in an unfamiliar country, even times when I was sick there and had to seek medical care early on and wasn't comfortable with the language. I think it's allowed me to empathize a little bit more with what it's like for patients in these really unfamiliar places. I think it's allowed me to connect with patients who are new to the country and are adjusting.
Be sure to visit our website at ethnomed.org for additional resources. Also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at ethnomedUW and on LinkedIn. Thank you.